What did we watch last week?
The Face of Evil.
Face of Evil.
Where the Doctor went to a planet and met Leela. And then there was the Savages, the Seva team, and the Tesh. And they were fighting. And then there was the god, Zoannon, which was just the computer, which went insane because it was part Doctor. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to let you recap that because so much has happened in the last week that I'm fuzzy.
Yeah. So we'll just continue from there.
Sorry.
That was our recap. Welcome back. We're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films.
I do remember Leela.
Yeah. Last week we did get our new companion Leela, a somewhat primitive alien girl who I'm sure will fit in just well in 20th century England. So, but yeah, it was an interesting episode.
Yes.
Definitely. Oh, and for the thumbnail, because you haven't seen it yet, I literally made it yesterday. I finished editing the last episode yesterday. I'm a little behind. Let's see. That's the thumbnail I went with for...
What are we looking at here?
It may be a little too busy.
I'm seeing Link.
Yeah, that's Link. There's another guy from... This is from the terrible knockoff Zelda games that I told you about.
Okay.
And then in the back, you can just barely make out Tom Baker. That's from one of the screenshots where like the face gets like zapped, so he goes like bug-eyed and stuff.
Okay.
So I just went with that, and it's very much a cluster of a thumbnail. But I don't know why I really love doing those kinds of thumbnails. So I feel like it will draw the eye, you know?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Anywho.
Anyway.
That was last week, The Face of Evil. But yeah, the big takeaway is we got a new companion, Leela. And yeah, I don't know how long she'll stay on. Hopefully at least a season. So we'll have to see if it's another... I mean, we've already seen it's not really going to be another Katarina situation because she does understand things. You know, she's a bit more like Jamie and everything. And she's also like every strong companion rolled into one, basically.
Yeah.
Of basically literally being strong and muscular and a warrior and not afraid to kill if the moment requires it. But the Doctor's trying to convince her that it doesn't always require it. So, yeah. Today we're on to The Robots of Death, which as generic titles get on this show.
We've had Robot.
Yep.
And we've had several titles, I think, with death in them.
Yeah, so yeah, The Robots of Death. At least, I mean, I guess this lets us know there will be more than one robot, as opposed to Robot, which only had one robot. So, yeah.
Okay.
You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then why don't we just jump right into The Robots of Death? Here we go.
I wouldn't let a robot work on me, not for all the Zelenite in this ship.
Shut up, Chubb. Thank you, V16. The Vought-class robot has over 1 million multi-level constrainers in its circuitry.
General Zod there in the foreground.
Before it performs such an action. Now which is larger?
That one.
But it looks smaller.
Well, that's because it's further away.
Exactly. If you could keep that exactly that distance away and have it here, the large one would fit inside a small one.
That's silly.
That's trans-dimensional engineering, a key Time Lord discovery. Wonder where we are.
You mean you don't know?
Well, not precisely, no.
You mean you can't control this machine?
Well, of course I can control it. 9 times out of 10. Well, 7 times out of 10. 5 times. Look. Never mind. Let's see where we are.
Oh, I like she kept the gun.
How do you know?
I never carry weapons. If people see you mean them no harm, they never hurt you. 9 times out of 10.
Oh, that's unnecessary.
I mean, they seem to be very extra for like a mining people.
Clear and running.
What are you doing? Look, stop. Stand still.
This is why you gotta be kind to your electronics. It's a great scream.
Oops.
Man, cranes are never that good. You always get the, like, this, and then it just goes up anyway.
Except for your brother. I remember that time he got like 6 out of 7 that he tried in a row.
Well,
Scientists. Never should have let him on board.
He'd probably agree with you.
Fool.
Coming, Commander.
well, we know who's going to be blamed for 4 episodes.
It's a corpse marker.
What? Robot deactivation disk. They use them in the construction centers. If ever we used the stop circuit and turned off all our robots, they'd have to go back to a construction center for reactivation.
That's almost
On
a
arrival,
Renaissance outfit.
each would be marked with a disc like that to show it as deactivated robot.
Bring the man and the woman here.
I was about to inform you, Commander. They have escaped.
You see?
What?
Escaped? Then you better find them and find them quick. Put every spare robot on it.
I feel like this is like Dune if it was made in 1939.
I like the costumes, but the headdresses are a bit distracting.
Well, look at all that light that's providing. Oh man, they're gonna bury it with the cereal. Alrighty. That's part 1.
Very interesting.
Well,
Again, it's a very similar setup to things that we've seen before. People who are on a hostile planet, but who need to make money, and they don't trust their leaders. And now we have the added problem of, robots who have gone rogue.
yeah. It definitely feels like an old school type of this is what they'll look like in the future and all this sort of, almost what's the villain's name in Flash Gordon?
Oh, Ming the Merciless, yeah.
Yeah, kind of sort of that vibe. Except they took that and instead of making it like, oh, these, elegant space people, they're miners. So it's kind of a weird choice. Like, if this is what the blue collar people look like, what do the higher ups look like?
Yeah.
So,
And of course, it always fascinates me that I understand you want to make robots look, anthropomorphic. They have to look like humans, but these have very stylized hair, and it doesn't seem to be functional. Robots are supposed to be form over function.
yeah.
Or function over form, sorry. And again, it seems like the design of these robots could have been a little less flamboyant, a little more functional, and that would make them slightly scarier, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess it does work, though, in a sense that the whole thing is like that,
Yeah.
I mean, the ship itself is pretty standard. Like, the most out there thing is their little, like, lounge that they have. But the rest of it is pretty standard, Doctor Who spaceship. But the fact that their outfits are so out there and the robot designs are very out there, it's just it's strange, but it's consistently weird.
Yes.
So,
It is consistent, but again, just from a director's standpoint, the visuals, to me, don't match the story.
yeah.
Now, and again, you have to understand that this is probably 3 or 4 years or more before Alien. But Alien, to me, set the standard because those were workers on a freighter doing grunt work, and the whole ship looked like, they had bought it at a junkyard and simply refurbished it. So whenever you got something like this, where the exterior of this mining ship, whatever it is very functional, the inside just doesn't match.
Yeah. Also, if you want to watch a fun reaction to Alien, there is one on the channel where I was in here in the dark, terrified. So, but yeah, I know what you mean with that sort of style. Cowboy Bebop kind of does that, where it's just like, these are just some normal people just in a normal looking sort of spacecraft going throughout space, and it's just pretty ironically down to earth, you know?
Yeah.
So, but this one looks as some weird, like, it kind of reminds me also of like A Trip to the Moon or something like that, like those really old early 1900s movies where it's like, I understand the visual spectacle and everything, but then the choice to put that in, like, these, like, their costumes rival the flamboyancy of the Time Lords.
Yes.
But the Time Lords are these weird, flamboyant, you know, they all keep to their one planet pretty much.
Yeah.
And when they go out, they do sort of blend in. Obviously, the Doctor, weirdly enough, the Doctor is like the most calm of all the Time Lords in terms of dress.
Yeah.
But these are just some average miners just trying to get some money. So
Yeah, not an incredibly powerful light.
oh yeah.
And is this what was his name? The guy who got killed?
Chubb.
Chubb.
I don't think it is. Because I think Leela just found him.
This may have been the other guy who hadn't come back yet.
Oh yeah.
Now, considering that whatever this ore is in somewhat large chunks, the Doctor should be able to wrap his scarf around his head and at least keep that out of his face, out of his nose and mouth, and then theoretically still be able to breathe a little bit.
Well, honestly, because it's in such big chunks, it just looks like cereal. Ah, he's got a little tube so that he can breathe. You know, it's nice to have a companion with a knife again.
You're off duty. Take the helmet off.
Where do you think you are going?
To search. We got to find those killers.
The robots can handle it.
So can I.
But where do you think you're going?
I like having that guy there. It's a new accent for Doctor Who.
There was a body. 2 of the robots. They took it to a special place.
Aw, man. I just said I liked his accent.
He's South Asian. Couldn't specifically pinpoint his accent. Probably Pakistani or Indian.
Not soon enough, though.
Good job.
You must be stronger than you look.
You must be stupider than you look if you think I did that.
Where is this man?
They're taking him to the crew room
I
now.
exclusively stab people,
Why do you
not
use
strangle
these?
them.
You seem very keen to spread suspicion, Poole. Could it be that you have got something to hide?
We've all got something to hide. Don't
Except
you
for
think
me
so,
and my monkey.
Commander?
It's an old Beatles song.
I suppose it's also a coincidence that as soon as you two arrive, 3 of our people are killed. Well?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a rhetorical question. Yes, it's just a coincidence.
Why are we wasting time on them? We know they're guilty.
Don't know anything of the sort.
We just hope they're guilty.
He was hiding Kiru's body in that hopper and got trapped when he was turned on. Now that's a fact.
No! That's an inference.
No.
You're a classic example of the inverse ratio between the size of the mouth and the size of the brain.
Come on. Doesn't matter. V8, lock up these 2 strangers.
And get them a tomato-based drink.
No.
Why do you hate me?
You don't understand about personal space?
Back up 3 feet and
Tell you
ask again.
something. By the time this trip is over, I'll have more money than you or your fancy family ever dreamed of.
May I go now, Commander?
Bite him on the nose. Ruin his makeup.
I want every person to progressively hurt him over the course of this episode.
Be careful of him, Doctor. He's not what he seems.
Why do you say that?
Well, you move like a hunter. Watch all the time.
Are you a hunter, Pooh?
Well, never mind about me. What matters to you is Commander Ivanov. I know him. And I know it's
never
only a
gonna
matter
remember
of
that
time
name.
before... Well, my friend, robots cannot kill. They're prime directive.
I know. Suppose someone's found a way of bypassing it.
It's impossible. It's just impossible.
Bumblebees.
What?
Terran insects. Aerodynamically impossible for them to fly. They do it.
He said the B-movie thing again. Yes!
I must be getting soft. Now, look, there's more than those two aboard. Get the tin brains to make another search, and this time, do it thoroughly.
Tin brains.
Ralph,
Get out of my way, Paul.
I'm confining you to quarters and relieving your command.
She was dead when I got here.
What are you doing there, making doubly sure?
Don't be a fool. Get out of my way.
Oh. I could watch that man getting hit all day.
Big sabotage with sabotage.
All readings are 85% above safety.
Alrighty.
Well, again, it's a great story.
Yeah.
Distracted by some really bizarre costuming.
Yeah. It feels like Knives Out. Like this, just too many weird people and a weird murder mystery that kind of makes sense, and kind of you're like, wait, but who could it be aside from the robots?
But the one clue we have is that some person is behind the robots going bad, because we saw the human hand the robot the corpse marker.
Yeah.
That's the only big clue that we've got at this point.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, because I don't think it would be Pool, because I think you can just vaguely see a bit of like green, or at least something dark, and he wears more lighter colors.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, because we talked about how the previous showrunners, for lack of a better word, producers, were doing things like with the Frankenstein story and the Dracula story and the Creature of the Black, whatever, the Mummy. There's an Agatha Christie story where people are locked on an island, in a mansion on an island, and one by one they're getting killed. And when it gets down to like the last two, they suddenly begin to realize that one of the people who had previously been killed was actually the murderer and had staged his own death. And I'm kind of thinking that may be what's going on here, is that somebody that we've already lost may be the one who has done this. Because with this shrinking group of people, it's getting harder and harder not to figure out which one it is.
Yeah. Honestly, it could even just be the first person, because also, where did they take the body away to?
Yeah.
And I think he was actually wearing green, now that I think about it. So it could have been Chubb. Yeah. One thing I really like? I like that Leela will just kick a guy at any point. And, we've had, like Sarah Jane or, other companions where they, they've got a lot of fire in their souls. She actually drives that fire to her leg and kicks somebody. So...
yeah, I'm beginning to like her. Now, again, assuming, like Jamie, that she will develop the ability to go along with anything, yes, again, like our Warrior Barbara theory, she's becoming the new Warrior Barbara.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I also like that she does also have a bit of different instinct than the Doctor, where soon as Poole walks in, she says, "Oh, you're clearly a hunter," because you're always, looking around. You have that sort of stance, and that's something that the Doctor doesn't really see. So yeah, it's one of those, like, I'm sure, like, on paper, it seems like such a strange idea for a companion, but honestly, it's very good and it's very different from what we've had.
Yeah.
So.
These models, again, must be from those Thunderbird people. We should probably watch at the end to see if it gives them any credit.
Oh no! Please, no!
But why would that one be bloodied? They've all been strangled.
What does Taran Capel look like?
There are no records. From childhood, he lived with only robots.
You realize he's almost certainly on board?
No. I have checked extensively. There are only the crew and you.
But you don't know what he looks like.
But I know what they look like.
Before they came on board?
I had overlooked the possibility of substitution.
Yes, you had. Would you like to come with me?
Yes, please.
Good. Come on.
Alright, new companion. Oh.
Now you're showing off.
You cannot escape.
Now either it followed you, or else it homed in on this. It depends which of us is going to kill first. That is you or me.
Kill the doctor. Kill the doctor. Kill.
Alrighty.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, they weren't really alive in the first place, so... Alrighty, so I guess the mystery is still who is this original person, basically, that is now changing them. So, I like D-84, though. I like the idea of a detective robot going undercover, pretty much, so... but yeah, still pretty interesting, a little bit slower, but still pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what was up with the subtitles, though. That was... Like, they were like 5 seconds too fast, and it was kind of messing with me. But yeah, still pretty good.
Kill, 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 kill.
Are you all right?
Give one of those things to Leela.
Do not throw hands at me.
The lawyer'd call it Grimwade syndrome.
I have seen it, Doctor. Once before. Young kid. Just ran outside the mine. I tried to save him. I couldn't. I'll never ever forget the look on his face.
Zilda's brother.
His father, of course, had it all hushed up. He was afraid his son would be thought a coward. But robophobia is a mental thing, right?
Oh, yes, it is, until one gets his hands around your neck.
So how does a guy have robophobia and also, like, a robot partner? That seems a bit odd. Oh, thank goodness they weren't programmed with peripheral vision. I guess it was him the whole time. I kind of forgot about him for a while.
Kill all the humans. V6, come with me. Release more of our brothers from bondage. We will be irresistible.
Was it a good idea to say kill all the humans without like a little asterisk there?
What will it do? I said, what will it do?
Change his voice. When it mixes with air and helium is breathed, it alters the resonance in the larynx. They teach you that in the jungle.
So the robots will recognize Dusk's voice. They won't obey him.
That's it. Come on, D-84.
Where are you going?
That's an interesting solution. Use helium. Oh no.
Goodbye, my friend.
He's not human.
That's a good point.
Well, all good things come to an end.
Will somebody let me out?
A mouse in the wainscoting.
Doctor, why didn't the helium make your voice go squeaky?
Because I'm a Time Lord. I've been around, you know. 2 hearts, respiratory bypass system. I haven't lived 750 years without learning something after you. Mouse.
Alright then. Boy, that fade took a little while. Alrighty.
A very interesting story. Wrapped up a little too neatly. When D-84 blasted, we only saw like 2 of the other robots explode. Why didn't that cause V7 to explode?
I guess he just wasn't in range.
So, again, just some loose threads, but overall an enjoyable story.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It worked out. I will say the twist with Dask wasn't amazing.
There was no setup for that. I mean,
yeah.
When Leela noticed something different about
Pool,
she should have noticed something different about Dask.
Yeah.
That I mean, one clue back in chapter 1 would have made that last setup a little bit better.
Yeah. So, and it's also just sort of a weird thing too, that it's like he was raised by robots, wherever they came from. I don't fully remember if they
his father, I
that.
think they said.
Yeah. So, but he was raised by them, and thus he wanted to. I mean, honestly, I was kind of expecting a sort of Genesis of the Daleks twist, where it's like, well, yes, you did free them, but they realized that they are superior to you, and then, which I mean, they kind of did that with the kill all humans. It's just that they didn't recognize his voice because of the helium, which is goofy, but it's also kind of an interesting idea. But yeah, like, I kind of figured it would sort of be like the Daleks with Davros, that it's like, well, we don't need you anymore, you know? So.
And being raised by robots, it would still have been augmented, in my opinion, if he were, if somehow he'd said, I was hurt in a previous mining expedition, and I have been parts, the damaged parts were replaced by robotics. And that could have been something that Leela had said back in the first episode, just like he has a metallic smell about him or something that's different. But again, it's an enjoyable story. My only real concern was the costuming didn't match the rest of what was going on.
Yeah.
But other than that, again, it's not one of the top 5 stories in the Tom Baker era, but it's not bad.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we got the robots and the miners with their interesting look. I mean, again, just the consistency of it, at least the consistency of being weird, because even like you go through some of the halls and there's like stained glass windows, and it's like, why do you have this on a mining ship?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like a strange mix of ideas. So
and again, once again, we talked about the robots of evil, Revolt of the Robots, Robot Revolution. In this, robots were not evil. Dask was evil, but the robots weren't. They were only following.
Yeah.
We were only following orders as a good robot should. But again, Revolt of the Robots would have been better. It's just something that doesn't tell you from the very beginning that the robots are evil. That they have made the decision to not be good, and they have become evil.
Yeah, I guess it is because it's robots of death.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because they were basically the murder weapon, but not the murderer technically. It was Dask. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like there were 3 people who made this. There was the guy who came up with the title. There was the guy who wrote the story, and then there was whatever like cocaine binge that the costumer was on.
Speaking of which, we did want to roll the credits and see if the drilling machine. Now, Toos would have made an interesting companion too, as would D84.
Oh yeah.
No. Huh. So they don't give credit to whoever made those models.
Oh yeah.
But you'll also notice, and this was probably the influence of Star Trek and some of the other things, at least 3 or 4 times they showed that picture of them walking through the corridor, but it was a very small little bit of the overall large complex. That's very easy because, you know, they've basically done a faraway shot and then simply matted it into the larger shot. But that was very effective. I mean, that's really cool stuff. So we can see that the special effects are getting much, much better than they were back in the 60s. It's just, it seems like, again, somebody, as a director, I would have asked the costumer, can you make these people a little grubbier?
Yeah.
You know? And I understand, they're minors, and they've been doing this for a long time, and some of them are rich, but those costumes just, you know, the broad shoulders, and I mentioned one of them even looked like they were, you know, Renaissance, you know, the Renaissance in space. It's just very jarring visually.
Yeah. So, and I will say it's also interesting because it reminds me a bit of, I guess it was the Ice Warriors, the first Ice Warriors story, because you have this whole thing of, oh, we have all this, you know, we've got this work that we have to do, and we have this, you know, leader who's kind of like, you know, he's a couple days away from just being completely unhinged. He doesn't like scientists. He therefore does not trust the doctor and everything. But in all of that, like, I feel like by the end of episode 2, it's all dropped and it's like, it's just robots now.
Yeah.
Like, we just gotta not be killed by robots. But, yeah, it's like, I get that it's like, okay, we pretty much know the murder mystery. Like, we know who did the killing. It was the robots. But I feel like that could have been kept up. Like, I feel like most of the people died by the end of episode 2. And it's like, well, then the murder mystery is actually gone. And even if it's like, well, then you have this very limited amount of people. You have Poole, Toos, the commander, and Dask. And you have to figure out which one of them, you know, is controlling the robots. But it seems too obvious to be the commander. Toos seemed fine. Like, that would have been a twist if it was her. Poole was one where it's like, well, they hinted at that because, you know, he carries himself differently from everybody else. And I completely forgot that Dask existed, so that's not really a great mystery if you forget, you know, one of the main people.
Yeah, and again, that Agatha Christie twist would have been great. If Dask had been seemingly one of the victims, that would have been a good reason for us to forget about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that when he does show back up again, we're going, hey, wait a minute. We thought he was dead. And he goes, you know, he faked that. So.
Yeah, because there were multiple times where it's like, oh, well, this person is doing something else on the ship, and they're the next person dead. But I feel like they just sort of lost track of Dask, and just long enough for him to, you know, go paint his face and.
Yeah, wasn't quite sure what he was wearing there. Looked like he had like an octopus on his face or something.
Yeah, well, I think he just like sectionally painted his face, so he just like had a bit on the outline and then the
But there
green.
was that one shot of somebody working on the robots in kind of a very bright and
oh yeah,
just that, but and again it looked like there was some kind of hanging tentacles, you know, Davy Jones or something on his. And again, if that was Dask, that was meant to hide his identity, obviously, but then you know, we never saw that again.
Well, and that's also weird that he has this whole disguise, because it's a complete disguise when nobody else is there except the robots, but I'm pretty sure the robots know who's doing this, except for D84. So,
well, that was to keep the audience from knowing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I think the bigger twist was just that D84 was a detective, you know? So,
but D84 and Toos both would have made interesting companions.
Yeah, so but yeah, and I guess that's just the thing with this, that it's like, it's a twist, even though you kind of already know that it's like, well, it's the robots. Oh, but who's controlling the robots? It is kind of also like Knives Out I don't think this is really spoilery, but where it's pretty early, it's like, oh, so it's a murder mystery, and then it's like, well, wait, did they just solve it? Like, we're like 20 minutes in, but we already know the answer, and it's like, oh, but do you know the answer? And that's the interesting twist about that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same way here, where it's like immediately you know it's the robots, but you have to figure out, all right, well, who's controlling the robots, if anyone, you know? So it's interesting, but just, I guess, the ultimate answer being Dask just doesn't quite pan out. So, let's see. There was also the thing with the markers. That didn't really go anywhere. Like, it was the whole thing of everybody was marked with the thing, which signifies, a malfunctioned robot. But that didn't really, like, I don't know, that didn't seem to, like, go anywhere. There was no purpose for that.
It wasn't a clue in helping to solve the mystery.
Yeah. So that was a
Just
strange...
these, killer signature.
Yeah. It's like, was it in Home Alone where at the end when they capture Joe Pesci and the other guy, and it's like, oh, well, we know that you did all of these different, robberies because you always leave the wet
faucet on.
You always leave the faucet on. So now we can pin you for all these things that we wouldn't have otherwise. It's like, that's not a great idea, honestly. Now, granted, in this sense, it doesn't matter. We all know it's pretty much one killer, but yeah, it just seems strange.
It might have been cool. Now, again, we're looking at this from 50 years on. But, if you know how many crew members there are, the very first one that turns up, if there's 9 crew members, that there's a number 9. And then the next guy who dies has a number 8. And so that ultimately they'll be able to figure out, hey, wait a minute. What they're saying is they're intent on killing the entire crew one at a time.
Yeah.
Just something to raise the tension. But yeah, just a little, bicycle reflector didn't really do much.
Yeah, so... Again, it's nice having Leela just completely just kick a dude. So that was nice, because even when they say it's like, oh, well, you wouldn't have been strong enough just to strangle him, and I'm like, are you sure? She's pretty strong,
yeah.
But they do at least say it's like, well, you would have to knock him down first and then do that. Although these people don't really seem like fighters, Granted, I know the robots are very strong, but they didn't really do a lot to, like, fight back or anything. So, and it is also nice, Leela having a knife, and apparently she is really skilled with it. Throwing it is just that, the first person she does that to is a robot. So, but yeah, definitely enjoying Leela as a companion. So. Let's see. Okay, so Poole has robophobia, and yet he works for a company that makes robots and is undercover with a robot on a ship with robots, and is around robots all the time.
But they told his backstory, I think, enough to say that this was something that was, I think they would call it a latent phobia that was somehow hidden, that was ultimately triggered when the robot tried to kill him.
Oh, yeah.
And then it all comes bubbling to the surface and turns him into, a blubbering mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of weird.
And I guess they describe it more as a dread of robots than a fear. And I guess you could say maybe, splitting hairs on the wordage, but if it's more of a dread of robots, it's just that he hates robots and all that, and you're right that it is more latent, and yeah, once he sees the bloody hand of the robot, then it does break him. So it just seems a bit odd because he's specifically undercover with a detective robot. Yeah. So,
and you would think that there would be some kind of medication that he had been taking to, some kind of antidepressant or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what they call it anymore, but there are, especially obviously in the future like this or in a different place with that kind of technology, they would have some kind of medication, some kind of prescription that would keep that under at least partial control.
Yeah. And yeah, so when I only realized now that when they showed on the screen, but it was just kind of it was like crazy colors and everything. But I guess that just was the face of Dask, and again, we just didn't recognize that. I was looking at it, I was like, well, it's not the commander, so I don't really know who that is, So I guess, I feel like we're gonna get a comment that says, and this is not to call anybody out or anything, but I feel like we're gonna get a comment that'll say, well, we didn't suspect that Dask would be, the mastermind, so it must be a good twist. And I don't think that's quite how that works. Like if you, because I feel like if you, and this is a bit different from this, but if you have like an entire murder mystery, it's like, all right, it could be one of these 10 people. And then it's like, well, actually, it was the ice cream truck vendor that was just passing down the road and happened to shoot somebody. And it's like, well, but that wasn't a thing.
Again, Agatha Christie has a brilliant mystery. It's one of the ones that I've done, called The Mousetrap, where you have literally 10 people trapped in a lodge during a snowstorm. Somebody's murdered, and out of nowhere, a detective comes in on skis and says, we heard, I don't know if, I guess they must have called or something, but they said, we heard that there's a murderer on the loose, so I have come here to protect all the people. But one by one, the people in the lodge keep getting killed. And there's, the mysterious stranger, Mr. Paravicini, there's the weird architect, there's all of these people who could possibly be the killer. And again, if you've never seen The Mousetrap and you don't know what happens, turn this off and I'll give you a signal to come back. It turns out that the killer is the policeman who was coming in on the skis.
I was about to say, that'd be an interesting twist.
Because that way nobody suspects him. But then, what's really weird is that once the killer has been found out and subdued, my character, I was Colonel Metcalf, is just this older retired military man. As we're bundling up the Inspector Trotter, who's the actual killer, I made some comment about I should have known or something, and somebody says, how did you know he wasn't a policeman? And Metcalf turns to the other person and says, because I'm the policeman and I'm undercover. And I always thought that was weird, because as the policeman, he still, although he doesn't know who is the murderer, at least two people get killed while he's on duty. And that it's like, I think the first time somebody gets killed, the policeman would say, all right, everybody, I'm Detective Inspector Metcalf, I'm putting you all locking in your rooms to make sure that nothing. So it's just, it's a great story. It's a great twist at the end to find out that the fake policeman is the murderer and one of the guests is the actual policeman. That's really cool, but in the long run, really doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see. I guess all that's left is just the masking of the voice with the helium.
Yeah.
I find it also a bit ridiculous that it's like, oh, why didn't it change the Doctor's voice? Oh, he's a Time Lord. Like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I mean, there's this slight like, well, he has better respiratory and he has the dual hearts and everything, but it still sounds a little too like, all right.
Yeah. And again, that weird little thing at the end would kill the humans. He's not human. Leela's not human. She's not from planet Earth. That means she's not a human.
Well,
she's humanoid and he's humanoid.
See, there's never a full explanation. I see. Well, I mean, yes, the Doctor is not human, but the thing with Doctor Who is they always go on a assumption of everybody assumes the Doctor is a human until he says so. So I would assume even the robots are like, well, he looks exactly like a human. Yeah. So it would have to be that would have also been an interesting twist if it's like, well, we must kill all the humans. Like, well, I'm not a human, I'm a Time Lord. And then they just sort of walk away. It's like, well, yeah, you're not part of our instructions.
I mean, but then to have him say, but Dask is a human.
Yeah. So, and Leela, I think Leela counts. I think if they look human, even if they're from another planet, they count as human. It's kind of the Star Wars thing where it's like, here's all these, crazy species, And also, here's a bunch of white people. Some of them are British. You don't know how that happened. So, but yeah, it's like even though they're from different planets, unless they are specifically, orange or crab-like, they're not going to be human. So, but yeah, so that worked. Maybe that's why Dask was also painting his face to try to not look human. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like. I mean, again, it's sort of the same thing with Davros, where it's like the Daleks realize they don't need him anymore. It's like, well, you're not one of us, so they take him out. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I got. You got anything else?
I got nothing. What's coming up next?
Next up, we have a 6-parter to round out the season. It's The Talons of Wang Chang, which I hear.
Yes, we've seen a lot of comments on this.
I hear it's a brilliant story. But I do know there is one character who is very unfortunate in a modern sense. Yeah. So,
we've dealt with that before. Like when Marco Polo is a great story.
Yeah.
But there are literally no Chinese actors in it as far as we knew.
Yeah. So, we got the one guy in this episode, and he died immediately. So, oh well. But yeah, so we will go through that one next week and the week after that, and that'll be the end of series 14. Wow. So
we're just moving right along.
Yep. So that is pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dan from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.